Today's episode is brought to you by Proud Wolves. It is Proud Wolves' mission to make sure children all over the world have free access to cultural activities and sport. Proud Wolves helps organizations to change their income models and stops them relying on membership fees for children. Find Proud Wolves on Facebook for more information. Now, get ready for your All-NBA Team of the Week.
Goeiedag, enchantée, and welcome to this week's episode of 824 Presents All-NBA Team of the Week. Last week, we discussed 5 Eastern Conference teams most likely to end up in the play-in tournament. Looking back this week, the Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors have shown that they are not out of the race yet, mainly because the Chicago Bulls are struggling to fit in their new players. It only makes for a more interesting race, and hopefully, these teams will fight it out until the end of the regular season. This week, we're looking at 5 teams in the Western Conference most likely to make it into the play-in game. We will focus on the teams currently in and under the play-in game spots because the top of the West is wide open. A lot will change at the top of the ladder in the Western Conference in the coming weeks, I'm sure of it. Now, get ready for your All-NBA Team of the Week.
Pick one!
Our first pick of the week are the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs are currently in 7th spot and most likely to get to the playoffs because the team in the 7th spot is the only team that is allowed to lose one game in the play-in tournament and still qualify for the playoffs. Rules aside, the Mavs are also the strongest team in our selection this week. They struggled in the beginning of the season with Luka Doncic out of shape and Kristaps Porzingis injured, but after the All-Star game, they finally started playing like the spectacular team they were in the bubble last season. If Dallas can keep winning, they will be holding on to the 7th spot or maybe even sneak into the playoff spots. But that's the issue with Dallas this season. Every time it looks like they're on a run, they start losing again. In their last 6 games, they lost 4 times, almost 5 times, because they needed an amazing buzzer beater from Luka against the Grizzlies to walk away with a 1-point win. The Mavs are inconsistent and they know it. They are nervous in the locker room, with Luka expressing he is not impressed by the new playing game rules. You play 72 games to get into the playoffs, and then maybe you lose 2 in a row and you're out of the playoffs. I don't see the point of that, Luka said earlier this week. Would he have said this if Dallas was currently sitting safely among the playoff spots? It is understandable though that they are worried. Dallas has been fighting hard to get to the 7th spot, and they're getting tired. You don't want to start the playoffs tired. They want to be able to rest some of their players and cruise right into the first round of the playoffs. Without the playing games, the Mavs would be pretty comfortable in the 7th spot, being 3 games in front of number 9. But the league has created the playing game, especially to avoid teams cruising towards the end of the season. Nobody wants to watch games with teams not trying. The introduction of the play-in tournament has been fantastic for basketball fans so far. Dallas will have to keep fighting to the end of the regular season, but they'll make it into the playoffs and will prove a hard matchup for whoever they get to play. As it stands right now, they'll meet the Suns in the first round, and I'm sure they'd be pretty happy about that in Dallas.
Pick 2!
Our second pick of the week are the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizz have been very average this season. They've been around the .500 all season long. For every game they win, they lose one, and they have very rarely gone on a run. But even that is surprising. The Grizzlies are the youngest team in the league and are missing their best player, Jaren Jackson Jr. This is not a team that anyone expected to be in contention for the playing games, let alone be one of the best 8 teams in the West. But the Grizzlies are a tough team and they don't give up. Led by point guard Ja Morant, still only in his 2nd year in the league, and center Jonas Valanciunas, who is ranked 2nd in PER among centers in the West, just after Nikola Jokic. Last season, the Grizzlies played a fantastic regular season, placed themselves comfortably in the 8th spot by the time the league was stopped in the regular season. In the bubble, they lost Jaren Jackson Jr. very early on with a knee injury that has sidelined him since then. They lost 6 out of 8 games and only made it into the playing game against Portland because of the Bucks. They were resting their best players in the last game. Without Jackson Jr. this season, nobody expected the Grizzlies to win many games, and their predicted spot would be among the lottery teams. But the young players have shown that they progress quickly in Memphis. Ja struggled early on in the season with the added attention on the court after winning Rookie of the Year last season, but he's playing better now than ever. Dylan Brooks is showing that he is a great perimeter defender, getting under the skin of some of the best players in the world. Valanciunas is playing his best season ever, and D'Anthony Melton is one of the most underrated players in the league, who makes his team better in almost every stat when he's on the court. When JJ Jr. returns, and these guys have another year of experience under their belt, they will be in contention for the playoffs. Every season. Before we move on, I'd like to talk to you about A24. A24 was created by Proud Wolves with the intention to provide children with an opportunity to learn and play basketball at their own pace and completely free. A24 created different courses to improve your basketball skills that are available on the website, but our real mission is to help disadvantaged children by building and upgrading basketball courts around the world, and to give them basketball gear to play with. Come and find our website, and please buy a t-shirt to support our cause. Now back to All-NBA Team of the Week. Pick 3! Our third pick of the week are the Golden State Warriors, or soon to be named the Steph Curry Warriors. Even though his team has been lacking, Curry has been picking up the slack. He has been playing amazing, and he is the reason that the Warriors are still in contention for the playing game. In his last 10 games, he is averaging over 39 points, and he hasn't scored under 32 points in a single game. The only game he didn't play in that stretch, the Warriors lost by 53 points, showing how important he is for his team. Watching Curry play is an honor. You're watching history being written in front of our eyes. There is no other player like him, and there hasn't been one in the past either. And it is quite sad having to think that this caliber of player, in his prime, is not in a position to compete for the title. Losing Klay Thompson just before the season started has been a very hard blow for the Warriors, and they haven't really recovered from it. Kelly Oubre is trying, but he's not really fitting in. Wiggins is Wiggins, and he's getting his numbers without contributing much to the overall play. Draymond has completely lost his shot, and rookie James Wiseman has lost his faith in his own game. The team has slowly fallen apart over the season, and now that Wiseman is out with an injury, it will be even harder for the Warriors to mean anything in the playoffs. The season is a wash, and Draymond spoke for everyone when he said that he hates losing. That's what motivates me, not fighting for some playing spot, he said. The Warriors will likely make it to the playing game, but they'll have to win twice to make it to the playoffs. As it stands right now, they'll have to play the Spurs to decide who will play against Dallas or Memphis for the final spot in the playoffs. But if Curry can keep his current form, you'd be stupid to bet against him. Pick 4! Our fourth pick of the week are the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs have been surprising this season, to say the least. After missing the playoffs last year, for the first time in 22 seasons, it was consensus around the league that the Spurs would rebuild and they'll be bad for a few years at least. But Pop, one of the best coaches in NBA history, thought otherwise. Yes, the Spurs are in a rebuild, dropping LaMarcus Aldridge earlier in the season. Yes, the Spurs are playing with the youngest roster that Pop has ever coached. But no, the Spurs are not bad. Pop has surrounded DeMar DeRozan with young talent, and the veterans coming off the bench, Patty Mills and Rudy Gay, are performing on a very high level. DeRozan, in his 12th season in the league, is having a great season. He's averaging 21 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. He has never dished out more dimes per game in his career. Youngsters DeJounte Murray and Keldon Johnson are playing well off DeRozan and are bright sparks in the future of the Spurs. Jacob Poeltl pushed LaMarcus Aldridge out the door this season because he's a more reliable big man for Pop's players. Their surprising season has kept them quite high in the standings all year long, but recently they started slipping down to the 10th spot. Whether or not the Spurs make the play-in game, that's not their main concern. Pop wants to establish a winning culture for his players while rebuilding around them. The next question they have to ask themselves is if they want to keep DeRozan. The 31-year-old is still playing at a high level and can be important for a team competing for the title now. By the time the Spurs' young core is up there, DeRozan will be pretty much retired. But another question that will be going through everyone's head right now is how long will Pop be the coach for? The 72-year-old won't be able to coach this team forever, and the franchise has some great assistant coaches waiting to take over. Pick 5! Our fifth and final pick of the week are the New Orleans Pelicans. Currently sitting in 11th spot, just outside of the play-in spots, the Pelicans are chasing the 10th place. A familiar sight to last season, when the whole bubble was set up so the Pelicans could make it to the play-in game as well. They failed last year, and right now it looks like they'll fail again. Of all the teams in the bottom 5 in the West, they are the only one trying not to lose, and yet they struggle to win games. The Pelicans can't seem to figure out to put Zion in a position to win. Funnily enough, you can put Zion in any position, and as long as you give him the ball, he will win. That's the problem for the Pelicans right now. They seem scared to trust Zion with the ball. All they need to do is give Zion the ball and move out of the way. Coming from the top of the key, he is unstoppable. Getting the ball on the block close to the ring, he is unstoppable. Leaving him out of your offense, the Pelicans are stoppable. Brandon Ingram is still considered as one of the most important part of their team, but it is losing them games, especially close ones. Now don't get me wrong, Ingram is a great player who could be very important for another team, even for a contending team. He is just not the right guy to play next to Zion. Once the Pelicans can see that, hopefully they can put the right pieces next to Zion. All they need is shooters and ball handlers to move the ball around. The Pelicans need to keep winning to edge out the Spurs for the 10th spot, giving them a chance to make it to the playoffs. But having to match up against either the Warriors, the Grizzlies, or the Mavericks, I don't believe they'll make it. Something needs to change in New Orleans, or they'll lose their superstar very, very quickly.
This is our All-NBA Team of the Week. Please share our podcast and give us 5 stars. If you have any questions, you can contact the show on 824office@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Ballers out.